I want to talk today about the sixth Great Extinction that is supposed by some people to be going on. It's supposedly hand in hand with global warming caused by mankind's rampant, unchecked use of fossil fuels and destruction of habitat and so on. Now, I'm a tree hugger. I think we should protect the environment, but there is no sixth Great Extinction going on. I'm going to tell you what is happening and why it's happening, and that's not it. According to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN, 28% of all species they have surveyed are threatened with extinction. Well, given that the number of species they have identified is 1,730,725, that would put the number threatened with extinction, and they categorize that as critically endangered, endangered, or vulnerable, at about 500,000. Holy cow, that's a lot. But let's look at the other side of it, because these same people maintain a list of what has gone extinct. And 842 things have gone extinct over the course of 500 years. And those things aren't all species. They are, per the IUCN, species, subspecies, and varieties, stocks, and subpopulations. If we make the generous assumption that half of them are species, you get to maybe one species going extinct every year. That's not wonderful, but that's, on the other hand, not a mass extinction. As I'll get to later, species continue to evolve, even offsetting that one per year. There are a lot of things that cause extinctions, and I'm going to go through them one at a time. First, people blame global warming, temperature, and CO2, but that's really not, historically, in the Paleolithic record, been a source of extinctions. Animals survive changes in temperature just fine. Our own hominid ancestors lived through periods that were warmer than it is today, significantly warmer, and ice ages. Mammoths, elephants lived through in Siberia and Africa. We manage. Plants really enjoy CO2. It's what they eat. It's what they make trees out of. They do well with an abundance of CO2. And other people talk about coral bleaching and dying out. Yes, coral bleaching does seem to be a problem. On the other hand, corals have survived temperatures much greater than what we have today over their 400 million year history. So unless you can come up with another reason why they're dying out, it's probably not warming. So let's talk about the environmental. There have been 5 great extinctions. The last 65 million years ago killed off the dinosaurs. It was unique, and it was triggered by the impact of a 10-kilometer wide meteor in the Gulf of Mexico. But the real damage seems to have come from volcanic eruptions in India, the so-called Deccan traps. And what these did was to throw huge amounts of ash up in the air, which blocked the sunlight. Blocking the sunlight means the plants die off. Plants dying off means that the herbivores die off, and shortly after the herbivores die off, the carnivores die off. It didn't affect the whole earth uniformly. The greatest effect was on land, where there are the most species of animals, and they're the most vulnerable. Then the oceans, which somehow didn't get as hot and didn't get as affected, and the algae kept on going. So the fish kept on going, even though the ichthyosaurs and big dinosaurs died off. And then there were plants. And plants survive because they have a different mode of reproduction. They reproduce by seeds and spores, which handle adversity pretty well. They can lie dormant for a long time. And as a result, the major species of plants pine trees, oak trees, and so on, seem to have come through the Great Extinction better than the animals did. Oh yeah, there was some CO2 and it caused some warming, but that wasn't the real issue. Okay, another thing that caused extinction is competition. 3 million years ago, not that long ago, this was after Lucy was walking around in Africa, North and South America merged and the animals exchanged places. So the South American animals, which had been evolving in isolation for quite some time, marsupials, armadillos, and the like, got to come north and try their luck. And the North American animals, pigs, cats, horses, and such, got to try their luck in the south. Well, the ones from the north had better luck. A lot of those in the south went extinct. They simply couldn't compete. Another factor is predation. Now, we are the #1 ace predators on the planet. Let's look what happened when people hit places. There are 4 graphs here showing when people landed in Africa, Australia, North America, and Madagascar. The green bar, the width of the green bar, shows how many big mammals there were when people arrived and how quickly they disappeared after people got there. People have a big appetite for big meaty mammals and they disappeared quickly. So that's predation, another cause of extinction. Another cause is loss of habitat. They simply get crowded out. And the green here shows wilderness and the brown shows cropland and forage land. And as people's populations have expanded, we've taken more and more of the best wilderness for farming and animals, and we've crowded out a lot of wild species since the dawn of agriculture. And then just in the last 500 years, since the age of exploration, we and the animals that we bring along or that come along have gone everywhere. So in Australia, where they just had marsupials primarily, we brought cats, dogs, and rabbits, which inhabited niches that the marsupials filled, and a lot of marsupials went extinct. Between the New World and the Old World, there was the Columbian Exchange. Pigs came to America, and they competed very effectively against the stuff that was growing in America, but it went the other way too. Gray squirrels came to Europe, and gray squirrels are now replacing red squirrels in places like England and Western Europe because they're better competitors. So more competition, somebody goes extinct. This is especially true on islands because animals that evolve on islands don't have much competition or predation, and when something efficient comes there to compete with them or to eat them, they don't hold up very well, such as the classic example, the dodo, a large piece of meat that would just walk around and stand there while you clubbed it over their head. They went extinct in the 17th century. There's an unmentioned, frequently cause of extinction. That's social. Some rodents do it, lemmings and so on. When the population gets to be too much, they change their behavior and the population comes down. John B. Calhoun noticed this among mice at a famous experiment in the 1970s called Universe 25, where he gave a colony of mice everything that they needed: nesting material, food, water, climate control, to see what happened when they grew without limit. Well, they grew to a carrying capacity and then they got weird. Some of them became hyper aggressive. Some of them became passive and spent their time grooming themselves. Some of them became homosexual. And the females stopped rearing their pups. They just abandoned their litters. Calhoun was shocked to see that his Universe 25 didn't just shrink back in numbers, it died out. Well, the popular magazines of the 1970s drew parallels between his mice population and the human population, and I'd invite you to look at those comparisons today. How are we doing at family formulation? We're not forming families. People are not, courting behavior is screwed up. We're not forming families. The families we do form don't have kids, or if they do have kids, we're not raising them to be like ourselves. We're not passing on our culture. So I'd say that social extinction is a big threat to human beings, like it was to Calhoun's, not mice. So, enough on extinctions, let's look at new species. And I have 3 examples of new species forming. In the New World, ocelots, cats, came down in that exchange 3 million years ago to an climate, or to a continent that had no cats. And these cute little pussycats, this isn't every kind of cat that there is. There's also pumas and jaguars, but this particular species of cat, one species, evolved into at least 8 different species of cats in the climate of South America, where there wasn't much competition. So the cats evolved pretty well when they got a new niche. Human beings, or humanoids. In the last 2 million years, there have been at least 9 different species of humanoid. Now, unlike cats, humans are a vicious species, and we killed off all of the others. But there have been 9 species of humans in this 2 million years, so we evolved pretty quickly. But the champions for evolution are the finches, Darwin's finches in the Galapagos Islands. Galapagos Islands emerged out of the sea bottom, well off the coast of Peru about 2 million years ago, and they were empty. They didn't have any terrestrial bird species until a couple of finches may have gotten blown off course. Gosh knows how they arrived 2 million years ago, but they found an empty habitat. And they evolved to fill a vast number of niches identified by their beaks. Insect-eating beaks, seed-eating beaks. They can eat anything. They do anything. So there are 19 species of finches that evolved in 2 million years. If you average out the rate of evolution for these 3, cats, people, and finches, you come up with about 2 new species per year produced by evolution to offset that 1 lost to extinction. No telling, but it may be that the Earth continues to gain species. Now, in fairness to the IUCN, I'll have to say that us mammals have suffered more extinctions than we see new species. And why is this? Well, one thing, mammals tend to be large and tasty, and they also compete with people, which is not a good idea. But even with the competition, you saw what happened. It was the loss of habitat, it was the Columbian exchange and so on, it was the island habitats, and we're very sensitive about endangered species these days, like the IUCN is calling our attention to it. So I think that we will probably do okay in diminishing the number of extinctions. Let's hope. So I'd say, no, there is no 6th great extinction. In fact, things may be going the other way. Trying to imagine that there's a 6th great extinction is what philosophers would call the moralistic fallacy, saying, we humans are so evil, so bad, so destructive, that we must be wiping out all the other animals on the planet. I'd say that the evidence just doesn't go that direction. So what's the take-home message for you? Well, be good people, don't pollute, don't overconsume, do everything you can to protect the habitats and protect the populations of endangered species. But among other things, worry about your own species, which seems for other reasons to be going extinct, not to be reproducing itself. So let's see if we can keep some of us alive as well. Madam Toastmaster.